Hi, hello, good morning, and welcome to UPSC with VAR. So, the first topic for today is foodborne diseases. So, as the name suggests, whenever you are taking food and by mistake because of lack of hygiene or something like that, if your food is mixed with any of the pathogens are nothing but disease causing organisms. Okay, so these disease causing organisms anywhere by mistake mixes in your food and you take that, you will get diseases. Don't take it lightly, you will have serious diseases. So foodborne diseases are illnesses caused by consuming contaminated food or beverages. Contaminants includes pathogens, that is bacteria, virus, parasites, chemicals, anything which harms your body. So you just eat a samosa, but when you microscope it, you might find bacteria which is not found in the naked eyes. So that's why even sometimes when you drink water outside, you get fever for 2 to 3 days because the bacteria enters into your body. Okay. What other causes? Poor hygiene, contaminated water. With contaminated water, you'll also get hepatitis as well. Improper food storage, cross contamination. Sometimes one food gets mixed with the other one, like that. Undercooked or raw food. Directly you consume them so that the bacteria stays as it is and you eat it. And coming to common foodborne diseases are, so if you have the salmonella, these bacterial infection causes diarrhea and fever. E. coli will cause you severe stomach cramps and kidney failure. The listeria can get the pregnant woman miscarriage. And then norovirus, this is also highly contagious. You'll have fever, vomitings, and diarrhea. As I told, hepatitis A. So hepatitis is 5 types: A, B, C, D, E. We will be talking about hepatitis in the diseases class maybe tomorrow. So this is also a viral infection. It is by affecting liver. This is mainly caused by the contaminated water. Coming to next topic, what's food fortification? See, health is a topic where you will have to remember a lot of diseases followed by your vectors who pass them and the schemes. That's it. So I'm just making sure you understand the topic clearly. We will get to the connecting the dots papers later on. So what's food fortification? So recently in oils, you see that your oil is filled with vitamin A, vitamin B12. You have your main example, salt, which is an iodized form. Okay. So salt is a basic thing which comes rawly, but after that, you will add these nine nutrients, that is micronutrients or many nutrients, like adding essential nutrients to foods to improve their nutritional value and addressing deficiencies. Yes, this is good to some extent because many people are with nutrient deficiencies because of their actual food intake. According to WHO, we are not even consuming approximately 25% of the nutrients we require for a particular day. Okay, so sometimes you might eat fat a lot, you might eat carbohydrates a lot and lot. So just imagine you're having a burger for dinner. What's there in it? Yeah, if chicken is there, protein is there, but how much protein is there in compared to carbohydrates? Your chicken is fried, your veg batter is fried. Yes, everything is carbohydrates and fats are more. Okay, and then uh, okay, so now what if I will start a company and I will say full nutrition I am going to put in this. So I will search what is the 100% nutrient required for me, and I'll put it in this packet and I'll say, okay, you just consume this, all your nutrients are done. So this is not the way, right? This would actually cause more problems because anything in excess is painful and harmful, right? So we have a few regulations. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India would actually set the standards for fortified foods. They'll say that okay, this much amount is allowed, this much is the minimum, bare maximum you can put, like that. Okay. So for rice, wheat, and salt, the fortification is mandatory and government itself provides them. Okay. And also, suppose you're adding this much amount of vitamin A in the food, you should present the logo that okay, this much amount is put in the food. See, fortification logos on the products must be compulsory there. And other regulations are quality monitoring, because they'll say that we have put, but what if they did not? So random quality checks would be done. Random checks at the warehouses would also be done in order to check whether all of them are correctly maintained or not. Next, the main this thing in India is rice fortification. It's very famous. So they will coat nutrients to rice grain surface. So this is wheat. They'll remove the husk when you get a rice. They'll put the nutrients on the surface. So this is called the coating method. And then extrusion. So they'll mix nutrients with the rice flour and then shaping it into the grains. And then dusting, that is, they'll take the nutrients, they'll put it in the powdered form and they'll mix in the rice. And coming to benefits, as I told, it will reduce malnutrition. As your body is having more and more of nutrients, your body works nicely and you will have improved immunity. Coming to government initiatives, there's something called PM Portion Scheme, through which this fortified rice is distributed, and also fortified rice is also given in the public welfare schemes. Next, what's tuberculosis? So it's a bacterial infection. As I told, pathogens can be of 5 types. It is more, but generally it's virus, bacteria, protozoa, and then you have fungi, and then this protozoa is only again divided into 2 types. So totally mainly five are there. So TB is a bacterial infection. It's called by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It will actually affect the lungs, and then if not treated correctly, it would spread to other parts of the body. Symptoms are, you'll be coughing all the time, you'll have fever. Nighttime when you're sleeping, your body will be full of sweats, and as you're constantly coughing and fever is there constantly, weight loss will also happen. Coming to treatment, long-term antibiotics. So these 2 tablets are given continuously in order to sustain your immunity and try to cure the disease. And then this is something called DOTS. So WHO closely observes the patients and they'll give a short course of high antibiotics, which is also there, but it's a little costly process. Next, as I told you, pathogenic diseases. What are pathogenic diseases? Pathogens are nothing but disease causing organisms which are generally not seen with the naked eye. You will have to see them through the microscope. See, they are microorganisms like bacteria, fungus, fungi and parasites that invade the body. They invade the body, and yeah, an interesting fact here is, coming to virus, it is a RNA or DNA form, that's it. It cannot replicate on its own. It needs a cell in order to survive, or else it cannot do anything. Okay, it cannot be synthesized in an artificial medium. In artificial medium, if you put the RNA DNA, it will not grow. You should need a cell in order to grow. Next, as we were talking, examples like bacteria, you have Salmonella, E. coli, we were talking just below right now. And then for viruses, it's norovirus, hepatitis A, fungi. Just see these diseases and we'll study about detailed diseases in the next class. Next, types of transmission. So is it only through bad food? No. So direct contact. So from person to person, communicable diseases are there. Okay, airborne, coughing and sneezing. You might be well versed with it after COVID. Okay, and then as we told, hepatitis, waterborne diseases. You drink water and the bacteria is there and you get the diseases. And then this Aedes mosquito, yesterday we spoke, you got chikungunya, you got Zika virus, you got dengue, you got yellow fever. All of these or vector borne like insects, something come and give it to you. And then foodborne, that is contaminated food. Next topic is neglected tropical diseases. So, as you know, I'm just drawing normally. Okay, please bear with my drawing. So, this is your India map. Sorry, this is your world map. So, neglected tropical diseases. So, the tropical areas, the diseases here would be called neglected tropical diseases. Why? Because, see, initially all the research industries, everything laid in the mostly in the northern parts. So, what used to happen there is mostly the focus used to be on the diseases which were associated in that specific locations and which are spreading and which can be more fatal. Fatal in the sense you'll get it and you'll die. Okay, so mostly the focus used to be there only. But what happened here is these places also, the tropics also used to have some diseases which used to be neglected because those did not come in the upper hemisphere. So, neglected tropical diseases are a group of diseases affecting impoverished communities in tropical areas like dengue, leprosy, etc. So, what are we doing? So, now everybody came together. Even World Health Organization is giving initiatives to eradicate neglected tropical diseases. So, in order to boost this thing, mass drug administration in endemic areas, in places where the disease is originating, their mass vaccination drives are going on. Improved sanitation and access is also going on, and research and development is also in place for many diseases. Let's see what future holds for us. Next, what's traditional medicine? Just as you see this, you will understand, right? Traditional medicine is nothing but medicines made through herbs. Traditional medicines includes Ayurveda, Unani, Chinese medicine, yoga. There's a term in India called Ayush. Okay, can you guess what Ayush is? I'll give you 1 second. Okay, if you could recall, you're great. So, the Ayush full form is Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddhi, and homeopathy. India focuses on these treatments mostly because though they also have some side effects, the side effects are comparatively low when we see the normal medications today. Okay, so they're based on culture, knowledge, and natural remedies. Benefits: holistic approach to health, use of natural ingredients, and they are also available in the rural areas. And also, they'll have lesser side effects. Next, challenges. See, some people say, okay, for this disease, this tree bark could be helpful, and some say this leaves are helpful. So there's no particular standardization or book that okay, this conformly uh, supports this disease or something like that. There's no more research and development. See, there's no scientific validation is limited. So there's a risk of misuse or over reliance. Anything over, as I told, anything over is not good. Even though it's naturally made, anything which is over is not good. And lack of standardization and formulations, as we spoke. Next, the topic is what's One Health. So now the topic One Health. So you can admit this. So Earth has people. Wow. But does it have anything else? Yeah. They have animals. You have the environment around you. Okay. Bringing all together and putting them all together would comprise One Health. So everything in the world is interlinked to each other. So once if you know do good thing for one thing, the rest will automatically continue. So you will have to concentrate on all the three pillars. So in order to achieve a good health for everybody. So principles of One Health are, you'll have to collaborate with multiple disciplines. Disease prevention and control is also necessary, and ensuring sustainable ecosystems. One Health initiatives, antimicrobial resistance. I think we'll see it in the next slide. And then you'll also see zoonotic disease research. What is zoonotic? A disease which is spread from animals to um, humans. You can think, okay, COVID is like that. No, only from animal to human. That's when this happens. And environmental conservation strategies should also be there. Next, as I was telling you, what's antimicrobial resistance? So, what will you do if you get fever? Basic question. You will get Dolo 650 or Crocin or paracetamol, right? How many of you actually go to the doctor and get prescribed? I think it's very rare among all of us to go to a doctor just for a common fever or a common cold, because we ourselves are MBBS doctors or MD doctors without a degree. We'll just go, we'll get our, you know, medicines for whatever we are having. Sometimes we will also Google our symptoms, we will understand our problem and we will go, right? Okay, you can tell that, okay, just for fever, why will I have to pay 1,000 rupees for a general checkup and stuff? That's great. But what's happening here? Overuse of medication. So, any pathogen, the disease causing organism. So, for example, let's say these are pathogens in your body. Now, what you will do is you will get a tablet, and the course, actual course, has to be, the tablets has to be for 5 days, 2 tablets each day. That is 10 tablets totally. Super. Now, after third day, so first day you will put the tablet, and this will die. This will die. Second day, this will die. This will die. Third day, this will die. This will die. So the population of your disease-causing organisms are reducing. Super. Now what we will do? Oh, I have already put 3 days tablets. It will give me side effects. So I am okay. No, now my immunity will take care. So now what you will do is you will omit that 4 tablets. That is 2 days you will not take tablets. What happens this time is the bacteria which is alive here. Did you see? They will see these chemications and they will start making themselves immune to those tablets. So next time when you get fever with the same pathogens, this 5 days 2 tablets won't be enough for you. Next time you should take 10 days 2 tablets each, that is 20 tablets. So this is what is called antimicrobial resistance. The microbes which are infecting you are becoming resistant to the medication you're taking. See, AMR occurs when organisms evolve to resist antibiotics, making injections to treat to be getting harder. Causes of AMR: overuse, misuse in agriculture. So if this cow actually has more antibiotics and you drink that milk, the bacteria would get accustomed with those antibiotics and it's harder for you for the next time you go to treatment. Lack of new antibiotics and poor treatment. And also we have over the counter drugs, you have to stop it. Without prescription also you should stop getting medications. This all are causes. So what are we doing? As we saw in One Health, we have an initiative that, okay, we have to check well how these antimicrobial resistance are working. You will have to do research and development. You should try controlling giving antibiotics without a prescription. So all of these is there in One Health. So how to do? You should use rational use of antibiotics. Don't go to antibiotics in the very first thing until and unless it's serious. Go to a nice doctor or go to a certified doctor and get your medications and use it nicely, consistently. Do not omit, just as I was telling. And then right now we have improved diagnostic tools as well. So we will get what tablet we actually require rather than taking all of them. And also, global awareness campaigns should also be done. And World Health Organization by 2030, it's trying to get five medications for few of the antibiotic resistance bacteria. So let's see how does it go. Next. So I think the table did not come here correctly. I will put a table tomorrow. You can see what disease and what nutrient it is. So thank you for today. Have a great day.